So the battle over the bread and butter issues playing out at the convention last night. Vice President Biden hammering Donald Trump in an attempt to appeal to middle-class voters. Biden saying that the billionaire businessman just doesn't understand what they go through. Joe Borelli, co-chair of Trump's New York campaign, joins me now. Joe, good to have you with us today.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Let's start by listening to some of this sound that we have from Joe Biden.
How can there be pleasure in saying you're fired? He's trying to tell us he cares about the middle class. Give me a break. That's a bunch of malarkey.
Joe Biden said he's known on the Hill as middle-class Joe, and he laughed and said that's not really a compliment, but he's always been the person in this administration who has been sort of most in touch with that part of the population. Are you concerned about him and his voice with them?
Look, Biden's likable, and the funny thing is that we're talking about everyone's speech except for Tim Kaine's last night, and I think he's going to have a hard time when he doesn't have Joe Biden opening for him and when he doesn't have Barack Obama closing for him. But look, last night gave us an opportunity to compare the records of both vice presidential candidates now that we have the record. And if you want to talk about not caring about the middle class, just compare the two. Tim Kaine became the governor of Virginia. Unemployment rose from doubled under his watch in Virginia, and he had the benefit of having an expanded federal government right next door in D.C. We have our candidate who created 150,000 new jobs in Indiana by lowering corporate taxes, lowering taxes on individuals. That's the message we're going to try to bring to voters in Rust Belt states. That's the message that the middle class wants to hear. Hillary Clinton, what is she offering middle-class voters? Bernie Sanders attacked her in April for already violating her pledge that she was going to not raise taxes on anyone making under $250,000. So I don't think our party has a problem speaking with the middle class. I think the Democratic ticket is the one who has that problem.
You know, what about the "you're fired" thing? You know, they're going to use that. They will exploit those moments when Donald Trump sat at the boardroom table during those Apprentice episodes and looked people in the eye and said, "You're fired." This issue of, you know, the mean and the dark that they are going to continue to bring at you guys.
No, look, they've tried this with a number of things about Donald Trump. No one out there who is even following this race has not heard the catchphrase, "You're fired" by Donald Trump. It's not like they've discovered this in some hidden closet somewhere and people are shocked. And maybe, in fairness, maybe the federal government needs to be told you're fired on a couple of things. So I'm not too concerned with this. This is not what the American public really care about. This is just kind of deflection from the Clinton campaign, which we've seen this week with these the Russian comment that you just aired earlier.
You know, when you look at Ohio, obviously a very important state. You know, a lot of industrial areas in Ohio. It's a very mixed state. There's also urban areas and suburban areas. Pennsylvania is a very serious battleground area. And, you know, you're going to have a tough time in Pennsylvania. You've got Tim Kaine, you've got Virginia, which may be why you've brought him up, because he's going to be campaigning, and that's probably worth a couple of points in Virginia, and it's going to be a close state. So how do you think those states are shaping up?
Well, you know, to go to Virginia, the last Hampton College poll has Trump and Clinton tied there. But I think Tim Kaine is actually a one-trick pony for the campaign, for the Clinton campaign. His goal is to deliver Virginia, and it's actually questionable of whether that is the case. Look, to use a Full House reference, Hillary Clinton would have been better served by giving us a vice presidential pick who was maybe somewhat like Uncle Jesse or Uncle Joey. But instead, last night, we all see that she gave us Danny Tanner, and it wasn't too well received.
All right. Well, that may be lost on some of the audience, but that's okay. Pennsylvania, give me your take on it, because it hasn't been won by a Republican candidate since 1988. It's a difficult state to win, and it's one that Donald Trump says he'll spend a lot of time in.
As he should. It's a must-win state for the Trump campaign. You know, again, go to issues like TPP. We have Secretary Clinton supporting TPP, then not supporting it, and now you have Terry McAuliffe kind of giving a wink and a nod to the establishment, saying that she's going to support it after all in the end. Look, these are the type of issues that matter not just in Pennsylvania, but in the other Rust Belt states. And to not have even a consistent message from the candidate and her surrogates is very disheartening to a lot of voters there.
How good is your operation on the ground? Because you look at Ohio, where you're not going to get help from John Kasich, which was, you know, called an embarrassment for the Trump campaign. And he really holds the strings to a lot of the sort of operations on the ground because he's a very well-liked governor. So give me a description of your ground game in Ohio.
Well, I can't specifically cite any firsthand knowledge of the ground game in other states, but I can tell you this. The campaign has done more with less since the beginning, and that's no surprise, that's no shock. The campaign is sleek, it's efficient, and you can get things done on a quicker basis, and we see that not only with fundraising that has sort of exponentially increased over the last month, but we also see it just in turnout and events, response time. The mesh with the RNC has been a complete success, and I had dinner with some folks with the RNC last night who really outlined just how well the two camps have come together to build this machine that's going to take on Clinton. Is the machine smaller than Clinton's? Yeah, but maybe Hillary Clinton's is so bloated that it's become somewhat inefficient, especially when you see a disjointed message from her own campaign.
All right, one last quick thought before you go. Michael Bloomberg, your thoughts?
You know, Michael Bloomberg is going to have a hard time telling Republicans like me in New York City that he was somewhat of an outstanding mayor. A lot of people don't want to hear or don't know in the Rust Belt states that he doubled property taxes on New York City residents. So if Bloomberg wants to become a bigger issue in the campaign, I think it's going to be a tough sell on some of the swing voters given his tax history.
All right. Good stuff. Joe, thank you very much. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in today.